Good morning, Pastor Sarah.
Good morning.
You are the pastor at Bay Shore Lutheran Church in Whitefish Bay, and you're part of our conference. You're actually one of our deans. So I'm happy that you're going to have this conversation with me today about women's history. I wondered if you would share something about yourself. How would you describe yourself?
Oh, well, I am the pastor of Bay Shore. I would describe myself as a pastor. I am a mother of two young women who uh, just make me incredibly proud because of who they are as people in the world. I am married and we are new to Wisconsin. We came in May of 2019 and then COVID hit, and now we're coming out of COVID. So now we finally feel like we're experiencing Wisconsin fully. So, yeah, I'm an avid knitter and have a lot of hobbies, a lot of hobbies. So, yeah,
Cool. May 2019 is a rough time to arrive in a new place and a new congregation. So good
it
job
was.
surviving.
It was, but Bayshore was great. Bayshore was great, and we kind of just learned together. Every week was a new week, and every week was a new experience, and we all just rolled with it.
Cool. That's very encouraging to hear.
Hmm.
Well, I've asked you here with a couple questions. So, as we celebrate Women's History Month, my first question is who stands out along your journey as someone who encouraged you in your call to ministry?
Well, first I do have to begin, and I don't identify myself this anymore because it starts as a negative, but I do have to begin in this instance saying that I was raised in the Missouri Synod Church. And that used to be like the beginning of my story when everyone said, well, identify yourself. I would always start with that. And I'm trying not to because I am over 50 now and I need to let this thing go. But in terms of my faith development and in terms of going into my call, it is really important. Because I was taught that women could not be in leadership roles. And so the people who really formed and shaped me, um, I don't think they did it with purpose in the beginning. I think they kind of felt like they were encouraging me um, to continue on in my call to ministry. And I know they would be very happy where I am now. And why am I speaking the past tense? Because they have all dearly departed.
Mm.
My grandmother and her women's circle. I don't know if you know what that is, but like the
Yeah.
women's circles of the churches of the old days. And my grandmother would take me to her women's circle meetings. And about 11, I felt a strong call to ministry. And I shared it with my pastor, and I was told immediately no. Um, Immediately no. There was no grace to that. It was just literally, you're a girl and you can't be a pastor.
Well, I hate that that happened. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And I told my grandmother and she said, "No, that's good." Um she did not she did not speak against her pastor, and I recognize that now years later that she didn't ever once speak against her pastor, but she never allowed me to feel that I couldn't continue to pursue. And her women's group also. And these were all Pastor Delaney, these were all ladies in their 70s and 80s. Can I just say that? And I'm not talking about 50, 60-year-old women. I'm talking about women who were 70, 80, 90 years old getting together to quilt for Lutheran World Relief. And they took me under their wing and they really greeted me, talked to me, encouraged me, um, shared gossip with me. They really helped me. They really helped me know that there was a place for me. I don't think they knew what that place would be, to be honest. I think that they were just literally being encouraging. So, fast forward several years later, I'm 21 years old and I meet my first female pastor. And that was like meeting a rock star for me.
Yeah.
It was. I took a job at a seminary, which was not Lutheran, and they had female pastors for almost, the entire era of women being ordained. And I met a couple women on staff as professors, but it didn't occur to me that they were pastors as well because they were professors. And I had had female professors, and that was, that wasn't a big deal to me. But then a woman came into the library at the seminary, and she was a pastor wearing a collar, introduced herself as a pastor. And later she told me I paled. I just didn't know what.
Wow.
And then my face turned bright red. And then I just had all these questions for her. How did you do it? I remember one of my questions to her, which is heartbreaking, is, do you still talk to your parents?
Hmm.
Because I was I was really concerned about losing family ties if I continued to pursue ministry. And so Pastor Kathy, was a person who took me under her wing as well, and really kind of walked me through uh, being female, identifying as female, being a pastor. Um, it was uh, it was very tender of her to do. It was very tender of her to do. And that whole denomination actually ended up taking me under their wing because there was no place for me in the Missouri Synod.
Wow.
Um, so I actually was excommunicated and from the church that I belonged to. And I went into the denomination Reformed Church in America, and I continued to pursue ministry through there. And so that Kathy was very formative for me. And then later, after I had done a lot of work and gone to seminary and everything like that, and I was going through candidacy, I had a layperson, and she just really pulled me aside and said, "We're going to get through this." And I thought, yeah, it does take a village, doesn't it? And so she really walked with me. Her name was Sylvia, and she really walked with me through the whole process, prayed for me, um, never once let me feel like I should be a silent voice in the corner, because I had been taught to be silent, and that's my natural response. Still, I have to push through that. But Sylvia helped me learn how to do that, push through, be an advocate, speak for myself, not feel inferior, and I honestly don't know what I would have done without those women, if they hadn't been placed along my journey, because they all helped me in a way to get to where I am now.
Wow. Thank you for telling me that. I didn't know any of that about you, Pastor Sarah.
Well, it's a very painful story. It
Yeah.
really is. It's really painful story.
Yeah, it
And of
sounds
course,
like it. You had to
there's the.
leave your denominational home where you
Mhm.
met all of those important women when you were a child. They didn't, maybe they had passed away, but whether they were still living, they didn't leave with you, right? So like and you use the word excommunicated, which I'm sure is the word associated with what happened to you. So it's not even that you chose to leave your denominational home. You were, told to head
I
out.
was told
Yeah.
I was told so. And even today, which is really sad, but even today there are people associated with that who won't speak to me, um and whatnot. And that's extremely painful. As I'm getting older, it's getting less painful, but it's still very painful, the memories. And even today, my godparents, they attend a Missouri Synod church still, but they are very radical and they are very vocal, and they came to my ordination and they support me and they encourage me, and and I'm just so worried that one day they're going to get excommunicated too. Um,
They're sympathizers.
yeah, but they are also now in their 80s, and they would like to see reform from within. And I pray about that, and I pray for them, but there was no place for me there. Um it was just a long journey, but several people along the way really helped me. And specifically, I'm always grateful for Pastor Kathy, first female pastor I ever met, and I was 21. And then my friend Sylvia, who really walked with me for several years as I was going through the process of being ordained.
Yeah. I'm grateful for those people because you're here because of them. And I'm grateful that you're here.
Thank you.
The other question I have to ask you, which is definitely related to this one, and maybe some of those people helped you figure this out for yourself, is how does your gender impact your leadership? How do you perceive your gender impacting your leadership?
Well, it's been really hard. I think I mentioned it that I was trained to be silent, um, or to fight from behind. Um, you know, I was my gender limited me greatly when I was younger. And in the 90s when I entered seminary, I wasn't the only female student, but we were in the minority. And there was a lot of questioning. And some some of the other students just really didn't have time to listen to my experience or my thoughts. Some others did, not all, but some were very encouraging and whatnot. But in terms of leadership, there always seemed to be a ceiling. There always seemed to be a ceiling of some sort. Like you could go only so far on a committee, or you could only go so far in your cluster or in your now conference. Um, and it was very difficult. Like the committees that you were, encouraged to be on, like education, youth, you know, we can teach and we can teach children, but we can't, actually do other things. Um, so my gender, my gender was, I was always aware of my gender. I was always aware of my gender.
And it sounds like it wasn't in a really positive way to be aware
No,
of. Yeah.
no. And so I was always aware of my gender, and I was always aware of like the way I dressed, my hair. Um, I remember, and I pray to God that this is not happening today, but I remember doing you know how I'm sure you had to do this too. You had to preach in so many places, and then they wrote up on you and you're preaching, and they would give you like criticism, constructive criticism. And the most common criticism for me and my fellow female seminarians were about our appearance. It wasn't about the word. It was always about our appearance. And I was frequently told about my hair, about my lipstick. Um, so gender was there. I mean, it was not a genderless constructive criticism given to. I am certain that nobody told a male seminarian, you really need to get your hair cut or trim your beard. Um, and I'm certain of that because I asked. I was like, so do you guys ever get comments about your appearance? And they're like, what? I was like, well, like you should trim your beard or you should cut your hair. They're like, no, what are you talking about? Um, so it certainly was really a struggle, and it was really refreshing when I actually left one synod to go to Southeast Penn, where I met my first female bishop, Claire Burkett. And she is also someone who really positively influenced me a female, um, as a female member of clergy. She, fought battles before I did, about 10 years before me. She was fighting battles and she got the same comments I did, and she was going to make sure that nobody else got them. And she was really an advocate and a voice. And there were no limits in her synod based on gender.